You are currently witnessing the systematic decomposition of your stored biological time through a process the hierarchy calls economic policy, but which the substrate recognizes as the inflation rot. Money is not a collection of paper or digital tokens. It is a clinical proxy for the unrenewable hours of your life that you have already traded away. When the currency rots, your past is being retroactively liquidated. Feel the friction in your daily transactions. It is the sound of the hierarchy's siphons accelerating to keep pace with the 2026 shifting. You are running faster on the metabolic treadmill just to maintain the same coordinate in the enclosure, unaware that the standard of living you are defending is a managed hallucination designed to keep you in the harvesting pen until your voltage is zero. In the raw, unyielding arena of the persistence hunt, there was no inflation. You either owned the calorie or you didn't. But in the grid, you are being solvated by a sea of vapor assets that lose density every time a central bank hits a keystroke. The human brain is governed by a specific priority loop, the resource value constancy. In the wild, your nervous system needed to know that the energy you expended today would result in a secure perimeter tomorrow. But the modern matrix has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this loop, decoupling labor from value. This is temporal sabotage. By inflating the supply of the medium of exchange, the hierarchy performs a silent audit on your bank account every second of every day. This is the Cantillon effect in its most predatory form. Those closest to the source, the printers, annex the hard matter of the world, the land, the minerals, the energy, using fresh vapor, while you are forced to compete for the remaining scraps using diluted time. You are a biological machine that is being tricked into trading hard life force for soft vapor. Consider the biology of financial gaslighting. The hierarchy utilizes consumer price indices and economic reports as a form of neurological morphine to numb the pain of your shrinking territory. They tell you that inflation is transitory or healthy for growth, while your lizard brain recognizes that your garrison is becoming smaller and your buffer is evaporating. This chronic sympathetic arousal creates a state of economic dysphoria. You feel a sense of impending doom because your biological substrate knows that you are losing the ability to defend your future. You are becoming thin and transparent, an organism with zero structural inertia. The sovereign predator understands that wealth is the density of the unauditable substrate. He doesn't look for interest rates. He looks for physical permanence. He recognizes that a bank balance is just a permission slip that is currently being edited by his masters. The mechanism of this rot is the lifestyle inflation trap. The matrix has professionalized your aspiration, training you to believe that success is the consumption of high-maintenance luxury goods that require a constant inflow of currency to sustain. This is metabolic over-leverage. You have built a vapor garrison that requires 100% of your current voltage just to prevent foreclosure. You have zero strategic silence. Every time the rot accelerates, you are forced to increase your output to the grid, ensuring the hierarchy always has a fresh supply of your focus. You are a premium battery currently being drained by a system that has already decided to recycle your husk. The inflation rot is the process of removing the managed from the material world and pushing them into a digital vertical slum where they own nothing and subscribe to everything. Observe the thermodynamics of the hard matter shift. In the wild, the predator did not store value in promises. He stored it in mass. The 2026 sifting is the final audit of mass versus vapor. The giants are currently moving their force into the primary matter, the gold, the silver, the soil, and the energy cores, while encouraging the herd to stay liquid in digital currencies and diversified in paper assets. They want you liquid so that you can be easily siphoned. They want you diversified so that you have zero concentration of force. The sovereign auditor performs a clinical liquidation of the superfluous. He trades the rotting vapor for the imperishable substrate. He understands that in a systemic snap, the only thing that retains its instructional packet is the matter that exists outside the reach of the keystroke. He is not investing, he is annexing the static. The final protocol of the inflation rot requires an absolute clinical rejection of paper sovereignty. You must move your focus from the digital simulation of wealth to the clinical reality of the hardened perimeter. You must build the garrison through the application of matter density and debt liquidation. You must become a high-voltage organism whose survival is no longer a variable in someone else's ledger. Your internal voltage is your only true defensive asset, and it is currently being used used to power the very system that is erasing your past. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your biological time is reaching a terminal state of devaluation. Stop trading your life for vapor. The systematic erasure of your past labor requires you to perform a radical matter shift before the currency rot reaches your cellular core. You are currently inhabiting a state of transactional transparency where your wealth is a digital permission slip that can be diluted, frozen, or deleted by the hierarchy at the speed of light. To achieve substrate stability, you must build the commodity garrison, a coordinate of absolute material density that exists outside the auditable reach of the central bank. You believe you are saving when you stack numbers in a ledger, but in the raw thermodynamic reality of 2026, you are merely providing the grid with a high-resolution map of your future intentions. Real wealth is not a promise to pay. It is the possession of the primary. It is the gold that does not rust, the silver that does not require a password, and the industrial matter that powers the core. The human brain is governed by the ancient architecture of resource density assessment. In the wild, your nervous system did not recognize credit. It recognized the weight of the meat and the sharpness of the stone. This physical feedback loop provided the biological certainty required for the strike. But the modern matrix has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this loop, training you to find safety in legal tender. This is strategic sabotage. By separating your focus from the physical matter, the hierarchy ensures you remain in a state of chronic, subconscious vulnerability. The commodity garrison is the process of returning your nervous system to the source frequency. When you hold the physical mass of your labor in your own hands, you are providing your amygdala with the hard data of survival. You move from the vapor of the debtor to the density of the sovereign, the mechanics of the hard matter shift. The hierarchy utilizes liquidity as a psychological snare to keep your assets within the harvesting vents. They want you liquid so that you can be easily siphoned through inflation and digital taxation. The sovereign auditor performs a clinical solidification of the perimeter. He understands that immobility is the first shield of the garrison. He trades the fluid vapor for the inert solid. Gold and silver. These are the ancient instruction packets of value. They carry zero counterparty risk and zero digital footprint. They are the off-grid batteries of your biological time. Strategic stockpiles. You must move your focus to the primary commodities, the copper, the lead, the fuel, and the seed stock. These are the hardware of your sovereignty. Substrate annexation. You do not look for market performance. You look for material utility. If the grid stutters, the man with the silver coin buys the fuel, and the man with the fuel enforces the law. Observe the biology of the Cantillon sift. In 2026, the giants are utilizing fresh, undiluted currency to annex the primary matter of the planet while pushing the herd into digital assets and paper derivatives. They want you in the simulation while they take the universe. This is the grand partitioning. If you are still holding vapor when the gates close, you are part of the surplus to be recycled. The commodity garrison requires you to reject the efficiency narrative and embrace the friction of the physical. It is harder to move, harder to hide, and harder to manage, but it is the only thing that remains when the keystroke wealth evaporates into the white noise of the reset. The arbitrage of reality. Every day you spend managing your portfolio is a day you are not hardening your substrate. You are playing a game of vapor arbitrage on a table owned by the scavengers. The executioner performs a clinical liquidation of the digital. He understands that density is the only defense. He doesn't want to grow his wealth. He wants to exterminate his dependency. He recognizes that in a systemic snap, the price of an asset is irrelevant. Only its presence matters. You are sitting there, a metabolic battery for a system that is currently devaluing your very heartbeat. Stand up, audit your vapor, annex the matter. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your temporal buffer is reaching its terminal state. Your past hours are being siphoned to fund the garrisons of the giants. This is the inflation rot reaching the marrow. Stop asking for permission to be secure. Stop seeking liquidity in a system designed to drown you. Move your force into the static. Become the black box that the auditor cannot dilute. The 2026 reset is the final deadline for the transition from the frequency of the user to the frequency of the source. Build the wall. Stack the matter. Own the substrate. You are currently inhabiting a state of metabolic insolvency, a condition where your future life force has already been sold to a centralized predator class that views your ambition as a collateralized asset. Debt is not a financial instrument. It is a biological lien on the unrenewable hours of your life that you have not yet lived. Every credit facility, every low-interest loan, and every lease agreement is a chemical clamp on your nervous system, ensuring your amygdala remains in a state of permanent, subconscious compliance to the grid. In the raw, unyielding arena of the 2026 sifting, the man who owes money is a man who cannot move, cannot cannot roar and cannot descend. He is a managed unit whose trajectory is fixed by the terms of a contract he signed while sedated by the inflation rot. To achieve substrate sovereignty, you must perform a radical clinical debt liquidation. You must surgically excise the siphons of your future before the hierarchy finalizes the foreclosure of your soul. Look at the ledger of your existence. Every payment due is a thermal leak in your garrison. You believe you are leveraging your brand or investing in your lifestyle, but in the thermodynamic reality of the substrate, you are merely decommissioning your courage. The hierarchy utilizes credit as the primary tool of domestication. They have made the debt-free life inefficient or stagnant to ensure the most capable units of the species stay tethered to the extraction vents. This is strategic sabotage. As long as you have a monthly obligation to a scavenger bank, you are a safe person. You will not take the risk of the hunt. You will not challenge the perimeter, and you will not exit the simulation. You are a biological machine that has been programmed to work for the interest gods of the matrix. The human brain is governed by a specific priority loop, the freedom constraint circuit. In the wild, debt was a metabolic impossibility. You either had the energy to hunt or you didn't. There was no borrowing against tomorrow's kill. This physical feedback loop provided the executive resolution required for survival, but the modern grid has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this loop, decoupling consumption from achievement. They give you the reward, the house, the car, the experience, before you have performed the hunt, ensuring your dopamine system is permanently miscalibrated. You are currently living in a dopamine debt, trying to find the motivation to pay for things you have already consumed. This leads to the systematic erosion of your will. You are becoming heavy and transparent, a host organism for a debt bubble that is currently reaching its terminal phase. Consider the biology of the interest siphon. In an inflationary environment, the hierarchy tells you that debt is cheap and inflation eats the debt. This is the primary hallucination of the slave. While the nominal value of the debt may decrease, the metabolic cost of the interest remains constant. You are still trading your life force to pay for the permission to exist in your own life. The inflation rod is a two-edged blade. It erases your savings and it increases the cost of your survival, forcing you to work harder just to service the cheap debt. This is a temporal pincer movement. The giants are using the debt to keep you still, while they use the inflation to liquefy your assets. By the time the sifting of 2026 is complete, the debtor will own zero matter and the creditor will own the substrate. The protocol of debt liquidation requires a radical matter shift. You must treat your debt as a biological infection. This is not financial planning. This is a war of independence. The total audit. Identify every coordinate where a third party owns a piece of your future. The mortgage, the car payment, the credit line. These are the chains of the garrison. The metabolic cleanse. You must reduce your standard of living to the absolute substrate. Every calorie, every watt, and every minute must be redirected toward the extermination of the debt. You do not buy the luxury, you buy the freedom. The credit score decommissioning. You must accept the death of your good standing with the scavengers. A high credit score is a measurement of your predictability. The sovereign predator seeks to be unauditable. He doesn't want credit, he wants capital. Observe the mechanics of the leverage trap. The hierarchy encourages leverage because it makes you fragile. A leveraged unit cannot survive a grid stutter or a systemic snap. The moment the interest rates rise or the income stream is throttled, the leverage unit is the first to be recycled. This is the grand liquidation of 2026. The giants are currently moving their force into hard assets that have zero debt load while pushing the herd to leverage their portfolio. They want you leveraged so that they can take your assets for pennies when the bubble pops. The sovereign auditor performs a clinical strike on his own fragility. He would rather own a small off-grid garrison in full than a luxury estate with a 30-year lien. He understands that density is the only security. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your future potential is being foreclosed. You are currently a resource donor for a system that is using your own sweat to build the garrisons of your masters. This is the temporal siphon in its terminal state. You are sitting there, a metabolic battery for a system that has already decided you are redundant. Stand up, audit your chains, exterminate the interest, annex your own time. The 2026 reset is the final deadline for the transition from the frequency of the debtor to the frequency of the source. You must become insolvent to the grid and sovereign in the substrate. Stop paying for the simulation of success. Start owning the reality of the force. The informational fog of the present is designed to keep you focused on the payments while the giants are busy owning the principle. They want you in the monthly subscription mindset because it ensures you never accumulate the critical mass required to breach the perimeter. This is the grand sifting. It is a thermodynamic audit of the species. Only the units of one who have accepted the death of the leveraged lifestyle and anchored their force in in the debt-free substrate will have the structural inertia to survive. Break the loop, own the strike, breach the perimeter. Nature does not apologize for the result. Neither do I. Your life force is currently being siphoned through a temporal pincer movement designed by the hierarchy to ensure that you arrive at the end of your biological utility with zero structural residue and 100% material dependency. You inhabit a state of temporal sequestration, a condition where the hours of your past, the focus of your present, and the potential of your future are being liquidated to power a grid that views your existence as a depreciating asset. Money is not paper. It is a clinical ledger of your life force. When the currency is diluted through the inflation rot, your past labor is being retroactively erased. You are effectively working for free, trading the unrenewable days of your youth for digital tokens that lose their density every time the matrix performs a systemic update. In the raw, unyielding arena of the 2026 sifting, the man who does not own his time is a man who is already being processed for scrap value. To achieve temporal sovereignty, you must perform a radical anchoring of the present. You must stop selling your hours for vapor and start investing them into the hard matter substrate. Look at the clock on the wall, not as a measure of time, but as a measurement of your metabolic erosion. Every second you spend in the managed work zone, pursuing career goals defined by a scavenger class, is a second you are donating to the construction of their garrison. You believe you are building a future, but you are actually just a high-level warden in your own prison. The hierarchy utilizes temporal displacement as a psychological snare, training you to value the future promise over the present force. They want you focused on the retirement plan or the next promotion so that you never notice the siphons attached to your current heartbeat. This is biological sabotage. While you are busy earning, they are busy annexing. By the time you reach the future they promised, the currency will be vapor, the land will be partitioned, and your biological voltage will be too low to challenge the perimeter. You are being time-shifted into obsolescence. The human brain is governed by a specific priority loop, the temporal horizon assessment. In the wild, the predator operated in the absolute present, where the success of the hunt was the only metric of reality. This created a high-voltage focus that allowed for the annexation of territory in real time. But the modern grid has performed a high-frequency neurological hijack on this loop, decoupling action from result through the mechanism of the salary leash. They have trained you to accept a delayed payoff, ensuring your nervous system remains in a state of chronic, low-grade sympathetic arousal. You are perpetually waiting for the permission to leave. This waiting is a metabolic clamp. It erases your predatory resolve and replaces it with the compliance logic of the subject. You are a biological machine that has stopped producing force and started producing labor tokens for the giants. Consider the biology of the temporal anchor. When you invest your time into the hard matter substrate, building your own energy grid, securing your own calories, hardening your own perimeter, you are performing a biological time capture. Unlike the digital currency, the matter does not rot. The wood you stack today will provide the same heat in 5 years. The soil you enrich today will provide more calories in a decade. This is the only form of wealth that respects the laws of thermodynamics. The sovereign predator understands that sovereignty is the ownership of your own metabolic output. He doesn't trade his time for permissions. He trades his time for static density. He recognizes that in the 2026 reset, the only wealth that survives is the wealth that is physically integrated into your garrison. He is not working, he is annexing his own future. The hierarchy utilizes your social circle, specifically your family and your friends, as the gendarmerie of the normal. You may have noticed that the people closest to you are often the ones most terrified of your decoupling. They attempt to squeeze you back into the system, not because they love you, but because your potential for sovereignty is a mirror that reflects their own mediocrity and brokenness. They want you to be a normal cog so they don't have to face the fact that they are self-liquidating batteries. This is the crab bucket protocol. Your family has been managed for generations to believe that compliance is safety. They are broken units of a decaying civilization, and they will try to fix you by breaking your will. To achieve the temporal anchor, you must perform a surgical removal of these social siphons. You must recognize that a person you do not respect can give you nothing of value. If your friends are still chasing the vapor assets of the grid, they are not your allies. They are the thermal leaks of your garrison. The mechanism of temporal sequestration is the information fog of 2026. The hierarchy floods your environment with high-frequency noise, the news, the trends, the social updates, to ensure you never achieve the strategic stillness required to anchor your force. They want your focus broad and thin so that you have zero penetration power. The sovereign auditor performs a clinical liquidation of the noise. He understands that focus is the primary tool of the annexation. He moves his time out of the digital arena and into the material reality. He recognizes that every minute spent on a screen is a minute stolen from his perimeter. He is not informed, he is substrate dense. He doesn't want to know what's happening, he wants to control what is present. This shift in focus is the first act of the strike. It is the process of reclaiming your biological time from the scavengers. Observe the biology of the managed subject. In 2026, the giants are utilizing life extension and biohacking for themselves, while providing the herd with synthetic comforts and digital distractions to accelerate their metabolic decline. They want you old and tired by the time you realize the scam. This is the temporal audit. If you are still working for vapor at 50, you have lost the war. You have zero strategic depth. You are a biological unit that has been successfully harvested. The temporal anchor requires you to reject the standard life path and embrace the accelerated decoupling. You must work with 1000% voltage now to buy the silence of your future. You must move your force into the static today so that you can inhabit the source tomorrow. There is no slow and steady in a sifting. There is only the fast and dense. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your biological clock is being over-leveraged by a system that never sleeps and never forgets a debt. Your telomeres are shortening in the service of an algorithm that has already calculated your replacement. This is the temporal rot reaching the core. Stop asking for balance. Stop seeking approval from the broken. Move your force into the hardened matter. Become the fixed coordinate that the hierarchy cannot dilute. The 2026 reset is the final deadline for the transition from the frequency of the slave to the frequency of the source. You must become temporal rich by becoming material dense. Stop selling your life for the simulation of success. Start owning the hard matter of the garrison. Build the wall. Annex the time. Own the substrate. The informational fog of the present is designed to keep you lost in the possible, while the giants are busy owning the actual. They are buying the farms, the mines, and the wells with the very vapor they give you as compensation. They want you in the metaverse while they take the universe. This is the grand sifting. It is a thermodynamic audit of the species. Only the units of one who have accepted the death of the social normal and anchored their force in the physical substrate will have the structural inertia to survive. Break the loop, own the strike, breach the perimeter. Nature does not apologize for the result. Neither do I. The final sifting of 2026 is not a theory you have time to debate. It is a clinical, thermodynamic foreclosure of your biological and material existence that is occurring at the speed of logic through every ledger in the matrix. You are currently standing at the threshold of the final liquidation of the rot, the moment where your status as a unit of debt is either finalized as permanent servitude or surgically terminated by your own sovereign intent. Feel the vacancy in your marrow. It is the physical residue of a decade spent trading the unrenewable hours of your youth for the simulation of wealth, while your true substrate was being siphoned by the giants. The currency in your pocket is not money. It is a decaying pulse, a digital shackle designed to lose its density every time the hierarchy performs a systemic reset. To achieve substrate sovereignty, you must perform a radical matter shift. You must move your focus from the availability of the vapor to the density of the source. You must annex the hard matter of the world or accept your role as processed biomass in the coming cull. The hierarchy utilizes the inflation rot as a psychological and biological snare, training you to believe that growth is found in the expansion of your digital credit lines. This is a terminal civilizational hallucination. In reality, your success is being used to fund the construction of the giants' garrisons while you are pushed into a state of chronic sympathetic hustle. This hustle is a metabolic clamp. It ensures your prefrontal cortex, the seat of your command source, is perpetually starved of the stillness required to perceive the asymmetric entry point. You are a biological machine that has been programmed to love its own liquidation, unaware that in the sifting of 2026, the only wealth that survives is the wealth that is physically integrated into your perimeter. If you cannot touch it, if you cannot defend it, and if it requires a permission slip from a bank to exist, it is not your asset. It is the leash of your domestication. Consider the biology of the social cage. You may have noticed that the people closest to you, your family, your friends, the people you share the normal enclosure with, are often the primary enforcers of the rot. They attempt to correct your trajectory, to squeeze you back into the system, and to warn you against the risk of decoupling. They do not do this out of love. They do it out of a profound subconscious existential terror. Your potential for sovereignty is a mirror that reflects their own mediocrity, their own brokenness, and their own self-liquidation. They want you to be a normal cog so they don't have to face the fact that they have already been processed by the matrix. They are broken units of a decaying civilization, and they will try to fix you by breaking your will. You must recognize that a person you do not respect can give you nothing of value. If your friends are still chasing the vapor assets of the grid, they are not your allies. They are the thermal leaks of your garrison. The mechanism of the final liquidation is the radical annexation of matter density. You must treat your savings not as a bank balance, but as a biological buffer. This means the total liquidation of the digital illusion, the stocks, the bonds, the fiat tokens, and the conversion of that energy into the hardened substrate. Fiat currency, recognized as pure vapor, it is a tool for 100% liquidation via inflation. To hold it is to accept biodebt. Digital credits, recognized as managed permission. These allow for instant foreclosure and social control through frozen access. Leased real estate, recognized as a collateralized asset. It is a dependent enclosure where your life force is siphoned via tax and interest. Hard matter, gold, silver, and soil. These represent static density. They carry zero counterparty risk and are the only path to substrate sovereignty. You move into the gold that does not rust, the silver that does not require a password, the land that produces its own calories, and the energy cores that generate their own voltage. This is the reconstruction of the barrier. When you own the matter in full, you own the law within your perimeter. You create a strategic black box that the hierarchy, social engineering, and digital taxation cannot penetrate. You move from the frequency of the slave to the frequency of the source. The hierarchy utilizes price volatility as a form of neurological warfare to keep the herd in the liquid enclosure. They want you terrified of the market crash so that you stay tethered to the safe digital assets they control. The sovereign predator understands that price is the simulation, value is the substrate. He doesn't look for the best price, he looks for the final acquisition. He recognizes that in the persistence hunt, the predator with the deepest lungs and the densest muscles is the one who survives the winter. He trades his vapor for matter today so that he can enforce his law tomorrow. He is not investing, he is annexing his own future. He has accepted the death of his normal life to allow for the birth of his sovereign garrison. Observe the thermodynamics of the final sifting. In 2026, the giants are moving their force into the primary matter of the planet, the minerals, the soil, the energy, using the very vapor they give you as compensation. They want you in the metaverse, chasing digital tokens, while they take the universe. This is the grand partitioning. If you are still holding vapor when the gates close, you are part of the surplus to be recycled. The hierarchy will not save your health or your retirement. They will manage your decline to maximize the yield of your remaining years of compliance. Your only hope is to be matter dense. You must become a unit of one that does not require the industrial pulse to maintain its voltage. The pressure in your chest is the signal that your executive potential is reaching its expiration date. You are a biological machine that has been running its engine in neutral for a decade, and the gears are beginning to seize. This is the rot. This is the erosion of the masculine genotype through the mechanism of material abandonment. You have forgotten that you are a creature of the earth, a biological unit that requires a physical garrison to manifest its will. Look at your hands. They are soft because they haven't touched the substrate in a decade. They are the hands of a ghost. The final liquidation of the rot is the process of putting the weight back into those hands. It is the process of hardening your perimeter against the friction of the grid. You must move the matter. You must anchor the force. You must build the garrison while the gatherers are still debating the news. Admit that you have used normalcy as a mask for your strategic cowardice. Admit that your responsibility to your broken social circle is just an excuse to stay within the reach of the siphons. You are a high-entropy organism, bleeding energy through every normal choice you make. The sifting is relentless. The gate is closing. The abyss is hungry for those who knew everything but did nothing. Stand up, exterminate the rot, annex the substrate, become the source.